customers are expecting a lot more, which means white glove everything.
It's not the best hockey stick you want to see.
The problem is there are vulnerabilities creeping into that AI code. Because how does the AI code generate its knowledge base? Well, it read and sucked in the data of every PHP plugin it could ever find.
And then if, God forbid, something does happen with that SaaS product, I don't know what that even looks like getting back out of it again. Welcome to Impressive Hosting, where we uncover the core tenets of great WordPress hosting. I'm your host, Jesse Friedman. Before we dive in, remember to check out impressive.host. It's where you can comment on episodes, ask follow-up questions, submit questions for upcoming guests. You'll also find all our links for you to like, subscribe, and follow wherever you listen. With me today is part 2 of our conversation with Wes Tatters, the managing director of Rapid Cloud. We were having such a great conversation that we needed to continue this and keep going. We're talking about performance and concurrency for really complex sites, the way in which Rapid Cloud is helping to solve those problems. Before we jump in and pick up where we left off, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, Wes, is are you aware of I think you are. You said you actually sponsored it, Orderly Apes product built by Kevin Ohashi to help
Yes.
with performance testing.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me, what do you know about that product, and why should we be, paying attention to it?
The biggest product in the performance testing space is K6. It's a really mature software suite that was acquired by Grafna. And the entire product was absorbed into the Grafna space, which meant for people like Kevin, who do things like the WordPress, performance review,
Performance benchmarks, and he runs Review
reviews.
Signal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for people like him, it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to use the new Grafna tools inside K6 to generate 1 year worth of reporting. And a lot of that was going to come out of Kevin's pocket.
Right.
We had a number of conversations with Kevin. Obviously, I'm very passionate about the performance space, as is Kevin, and we had a number of talks about it. And he was going, I've got an idea for us to fork K6 and create an open source version of the dashboard. And that's really what the Grafna component is, the dashboard. Orderly Ape was the name of the name that he chose. And he's been working with a team on that for about 12 months now. I think since CloudFest, last year, 2023.
Yep.
He's been working on that product and announced its official release, I think, last week or the week before. What that means now is that there is a truly open source version of K6 available. People that are serious about doing their own hosting, hosted platforms, can launch the equivalent of K6 Grafna on their own infrastructure without the cost, overhead, and burdens of the Grafna platform. And look, it really is what open source is about. I mean, this is it. K6 was an open source product. Grafna created a really nice set of dashboard metrics for it, but then chose to commercialize those. The opportunity with open source, if a team of people are willing to step up, and in this case Kevin and people like ourselves who sponsored that product, can refork and re-release that product back into the open source community. We're very proud to be a part of that.
Yeah, I think that's really great. It's really awesome work that Kevin's doing to make sure that we actually have really high integrity hosting benchmarks, so that you can get an idea of exactly who's providing some of the best hosting and specifically around performance. I think one of the great things about Kevin is his level of integrity. It is very he's very, very stringent about the way in which these tests run, and he does it to make sure that he's doing it in a way that because if you look up like online, right, you go to Google and you type in like who are the top 10 best hosting companies, it's really a top 10 list of like the best affiliate payout from each hosting company,
or who's bought the most ads this month on, or who's pushed the most leads to G2 or Trustpilot or any of those sort of things. And there's a lot of misconceptions about performance. in the WordPress space.
Yeah, and I think that Kevin really tries to
Cut
paint
through
a
that.
very clear picture there. So if anybody's interested, go to wphostingbenchmarks.com/orderlyape and take a look at what he's building there. I think it's something that's really valuable to any hosting company or anybody who's looking to evaluate their current performance. So let's dig into where we left off, Wes. One of the things that we touched on here is that you're providing in a way niche hosting that is specific to these concurrent type sites, but it's not just from an infrastructure standpoint. It's also from a marketing standpoint. Like if you go to the Rapid Cloud website, you actually have landing pages designed to teach people specifically the offerings that you have for these very specific use cases. And so I'm curious about how you're differentiating yourself from a marketing perspective from other hosting companies, and how those messages are resonating with your customers. Does it feel like they're starting to shop differently for hosting these days, and that they're looking for much more specific solutions?
I think at the point where customers are getting into this success space, um, two things are coming into play. The first, that their cost metrics are going up significantly. Um, they are getting churned every month. They're getting customer success calls going, hey guys, too many Ajax requests, or hey, too many, REST calls, or um, we need to look at moving you up to another plan. We need to look at, repositioning you within a different product space in our platform. That obviously has an impact on, their commercial economics. But what they start to find in many cases is that they'll churn a couple of times, where they'll go, oh yeah, okay, we understand that. But they tend to find that the churn isn't solving the problem, um, because the underlying infrastructures are not specifically angled or designed. Um, One of the metrics that we look at a lot, obviously, is this concept of PHP workers. Probably the most misunderstood concept in the WordPress space. And lots of hosts will, when you're on a shared host, you're lucky if you got two or three. Um,
Yeah, sure.
but even on higher plans, on a number of managed WordPress hosts that are out there, 40 to 60 PHP workers we're starting to get, that's at the business end of their product space. But when you realize that a PHP worker has to be exclusively used for every page request, and that can also be a REST request, an AJAX request, or anything else. You've got 100 people concurrently on your website. 50 PHP workers getting eaten quite quickly, um, especially if those PHP workers are on a slower or older data center, because they're taking longer to execute, which means that the window of time that PHP worker has holding memory exclusively and holding a CPU exclusively grows. And the more users that come on, it grows and it grows, and you get this quite rapid escalation from a point where, oh, we were holding okay at 25 users, and we hit 50 users, and the performance, and then you hit, and things are starting to fall apart. So,
It's not the best hockey stick you want to see.
yeah,
It's
and
not.
that's exactly it. J
Right.
curves are great if it's
Yeah.
revenue. They're not as great if
Right.
it's customer satisfaction. So what the heavy metric is, we're getting churned again, but our customer. So sure, if they're going to be churned and it's going to cost $1,000 a month, and the customer success or customer satisfaction is going to go up, great. But what they're finding is it's not doing that. The customer satisfaction, unfortunately, often starts to still fall off. So that's the journey that we're seeing with many hosts that are coming into us, and they're or many customers, and their customers have even done the right things. Buddy Boss will do things like say, okay, you need an 8 CPU core, 32 gig of RAM, box as a baseline for a Buddy Boss site or a Buddy Boss app. You might need 16 CPU cores. So then they'll go out and they'll find a host somewhere that'll sell them 8 CPU cores and 32
Right.
gig of RAM. Unfortunately, it's 8 CPU cores of Zen 4 processing power in a CPU that was built by Intel 15 years ago. It is 8 CPU cores, and it is 32
Yeah,
gig of RAM, but that 8 CPU cores are statistically a tenth of the speed of a modern CPU core. The memory that they're
sure.
being, that 32 gigabytes of memory, is probably DDR2 or DDR3 memory, statistically a quarter or a fifth of the speed of a modern memory core, say on a Zen 4 or even a Zen 5, DDR5 type memory component. So
And those nuances can become completely overwhelming,
completely
and you end
lost.
up getting analysis paralysis, and you don't know how to make a decision. Very much like I was trying to buy a gaming computer for my daughter, and it's been a long time since I've had to do that, and so I was looking at like GPUs and the way in which they work. And I just wanted an answer. I just wanted someone to tell me, like,
Like,
can I play this game, right? Like, and so it's very much the same thing. It's like, can I run Buddy Boss in this way? Yes or no? And so when you start shopping for the intricate details of the way in which your server is going to run, maybe it's not giving you the exact answer. So maybe that's where the benefit comes in you having specific solutions
it's a
for
specific
those use cases.
solution. And I guess the other challenge is that when they get to that space where they're talking, dedicated servers and VPSs, the dashboards and the interfaces that are out there are in themselves quite daunting. You know, most of our people are there to run a community. They don't want to know that they've got to go 45 tabs down in a cPanel to turn on this setting to fix this problem. They want very neat, very clean dashboard. Respectfully, they want a GoDaddy dashboard, which are, clean, one-click WordPress. Give me a WordPress site, please. They want that dashboard, but with a 16 core,
Sure.
64 gig CPU, or in our case, or same as WP Cloud, dynamically scaling, or they want all that magic to just happen, and they want that very simple dashboard. So, of course, their job is to run their community or their e-learning experience or their WooCommerce site. Their job is not to be a sysop or a DevOps or
Yeah, it's so funny because you're touching on another recurring theme in here. Now, we've had this conversation previously from a shared hosting perspective that you're a small business owner, you want to get back to, knitting sweaters or, I don't know, teaching yoga or whatever it is that you're trying to do. And, being a web designer is not your core passion. So that's not where you want to spend your time. This is even, at a deeper level here. You're talking about running an entire social media community.
yeah,
Obviously, being a sysadmin is not necessarily something that's at the top of the list. So even as they expand outside of that shared hosting world and into a much higher like enterprise level hosting plan, they still don't want to be running
exactly.
the minutia of all this stuff. They want it all working. And it's, you mentioned WP Cloud. Like one of the things that we're, very proud of is that we have like auto
Yeah,
to compensate for these things, right? And
yeah,
we have something called bursting or PHP worker and CPU bursting to kind of compensate in real time for those things.
yeah.
And so, it allows for us to create features for end customers so that they can feel very good about sleeping at night and not worrying about it. We're going to take care of it. We're going to manage
Mm.
it for you in the back end. And you just can feel good about knowing that your site's going to be up and
And that
running.
they
I would
want that
imagine with
bursting. They want that bursting.
what's
They
that?
want that. They want that bursting. They want that
Yeah, yeah, right.
flexibility. Because what we discover is that these sites are incredibly heavily shaped. We've
Yeah,
got sites that have got no one on them for 18 hours a day, but then for 2 hours in the morning between 8 a.m. and or some 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. there can
right.
be 100 people a minute.
Everyone
Um,
commuting to work and jumping on
um,
these social
no,
platforms.
it's the nature of the niches. That particular niche is
Oh, okay.
a shareholder uh they're not a shareholding firm. They're a they're a firm that advises on trades that you should do today.
Ah, okay, yeah,
And
yeah.
so they have a social
They've got
platform.
insider information. They want
Every,
they
every,
they they
every
got the
they got the well the
yeah, yeah, right.
so
This is the
every
time
morning
they need to get in up to
there's a
date on
window
things before they get into work.
and their
Yeah.
window and everyone's in the site during that time and they chat, discuss, and boom boom they're gone. And they're off to their day. We've got a vegan lifestyle community out of Dublin, Ireland, called the Happy Pair, which grew out of a Buddy Boss site. And it's now in the high street. They're in shops, they got restaurants, they got TV shows that they're on. But these two guys started on a Buddy Boss site that was basically a recipe booklet of how to cook vegan food. It's now an e-learning experience, how to learn, how yoga courses. There's but people log on every morning to download their recipe recommendations for the day. And then they're
Oh
not
wow,
there,
yeah,
and they're not
sure.
there again until they get home at night, and they might do a yoga course or take an e-learning experience. So the sites do this. In the
Yeah.
traditional hosting model, you basically have to buy the biggest you need for your peak, and that's in the VPS model and in the dedicated model. So, yeah, oh well, you peak it, you need 16 cores and 32 gig of RAM, or that's your peak, and so you pay for
Yeah.
that.
And you're paying for that even if it's dormant for 80% of the time.
90% of the time, got
Right.
a
Yeah.
site in Europe, which is an online dating community. They pay real money to be in that dating community. It's got a maximum number of customers. There's only this many members in the community at any one time. And yeah, it's that 9 o'clock. We're here. Midnight,
Yeah.
we're gone. And, but again, they're in that same boat. They would have to, in a traditional hosting model, buy that biggest server they needed for that window in time. And they don't have the brain space themselves to build clusters or dynamically automatically scaling clusters. And it's a full-time job for a sysop. It's okay, want to run their community. So yes, these tools that can take that load. But they want it even beyond that. They want people that'll go, your site's down. We'll fix it for you.
Yeah.
It's a
Right. Right.
500 error. All right. Um, they've had a malware attack. We'll fix it for you. They just want to weigh up and go, oh, you caught that? Thanks. And here's the certificate that the malware's been addressed. One of the unfortunate natures of WordPress right now is that zero-day attacks are increasing um, because AI is now really good at rewriting those malware attack vectors so that they don't look like the signatures that are in the traditional malware signature database. So you need RASP tools, and you need AI defensive tools that are actually monitoring your server and going, I don't think that particular call should be writing that sort of obfuscated code to a temporary folder with root access. As opposed to, oh, we recognize that signature, it's bad, because that signature
Right.
is being changed by script kiddies with AI tools on a regular basis. And even more scary, I was talking to one of the plugin review team last week. They're getting new plugins, plugin uptick at the moment, and they're seeing AI generated plugins being submitted to the repository. And I went, how do you know that
Yeah.
they're AI? I went, how do you know they're AI ones? And he went, oh, well, I got comments. Really good commenting. Um, you know, not normal, normal WordPress
They're actually
developers.
taking they're actually taking best practices seriously,
Yeah,
so it must
but
be AI.
it must be AI. But the problem is there are vulnerabilities creeping into that AI code. Because how does the AI code generate its knowledge base? Well, it read and sucked in the data of every PHP plugin it could ever find. And that means that some of those vulnerabilities are sure as little green eggs in those plugins.
It
And
all of a
they're,
sudden becomes a pattern. Yeah.
yeah, and it's now a pattern,
Yeah.
and you've got AI plugins with the vulnerability baked in. Not necessarily the best look, but and yeah, as you mentioned, Oliver Patchstack, and I know the WP Scan guys and the WP and the WordPress security team are just seeing upticks in security vulnerabilities that are doing this.
Right.
So our customers, in this space, they can't afford. So, so let's say they've got 5,000 customers, and they've all paid them $10 a month to be a member. They've got a commitment obligation to those 5,000 customers to be up. It's not like a WooCommerce shop where, oh, the site was offline. Oh, well, we might have missed a couple of sales, or or someone's just bought a LearnDash, $1,000 course on a LearnDash product, and they're ready to do it at 8 a.m. There isn't an option that says, oh, the server's down or there's been an attack. Um, so our customers are expecting us. We all talk about 99.999% uptimes and all that sort of thing, but in our end of the space, that's got to be real, as opposed to the traditional. Oh well, yeah, uptime is statistically, there might have been one person visiting your site during that 1 minute window when we had to reboot your server. Um, in our space, yeah, customers are expecting a lot more, which means white glove everything.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept because as an e-commerce customer, you're probably thinking to yourself like, "Oh, I'm really frustrated that this site was down. I wanted to buy this product, but whatever, I'll go on with my day. I'll find it somewhere else." They're not angry at the situation maybe as much, but if you're a paying customer and you have this expectation of things being up,
Yeah,
now you're creating a different set of expectations and you have a very very real situation in your hands
yeah.
when a lot of them can't get on. And I would imagine a lot of them do what a lot of us did yesterday. This is going to actually
Yeah, yesterday
really
was
kind of tell us where we are in terms of how fast these podcast episodes are coming out. But yesterday there was a big outage with Google Cloud, and so like a lot of times you end up seeing a congregation of people um, joining another network somewhere or going on the Slack or a community or whatever and saying, "Hey, are you experiencing outages? We are too." Da, da, da. And so all of a sudden it becomes a very real, um, a brand issue because you have all these people talking about how poor the situation is or
when the
how the
when when
site's down.
when the outage reaches CNN and MSNBC at
Yeah,
the top of the hour, there's a big problem. There's a big problem. Um, but for a small community with 1,000 people who all know each other, it's just as big for them. I'm paying good money for this, and
yeah,
respectfully, they are paying
right.
good money.
That's their hard-earned money. It's not for us to say that $10 is any different for
Yeah,
them per
yeah,
month than someone who's paying thousands of dollars for something else. It's they're investing not only the money into it, but the loyalty, the cognitive overhead, everything that goes into becoming a user of this community. And we all know this too. Like the experiences that we feel. I think when a community or something that we're using every day is suddenly not there, it's that feeling of you knowing that you have something that just works is always
yeah.
something we end up taking for granted, and then when it's suddenly not there, it's it's
It's just
uh, it's
scary.
anger inducing.
Yes, it is, and that's
Yeah.
the and people are very quick to take to, you know, to
Other social media platforms, which is exactly what these people don't want,
X
and
or Reddit
to, you're right.
and an angry post or the
Yeah.
standard tool of the trade. I'm writing a Trustpilot review or a G2
Right.
review.
Right.
And yeah, these are real issues at this end of the WordPress space. And a part of the reason, frustratingly, why there is that drift away in perception by people at this level, who then get sold on, oh well, a SaaS model is much more stable or secure. And I'm not necessarily
Yeah.
sure that that's the case, but they have better language around that than a historic set of language in the WordPress space, which says WordPress is slow, WordPress doesn't perform well under load, and all those things. The SaaS models don't have that legacy of
Well, of
21
course they're
years
gonna
of
they're gonna pivot on top of any kind of thing that's an opportunity to kind of like say, hey, they're not doing as good of a job. And here's the magic of our ability to segue here. We're talking about defending sites from downtime and other things. So let's segue into you defending leakage from the WordPress community.
yeah,
So one of the things that you're focused on is helping to identify sites that are basically being targeted by these SaaS
yeah,
offerings, or maybe are considering them, and they're running into these issues where there's a you know language or landing pages or marketing material or white papers saying, "Hey, we're going to do so much better than WordPress." And so you coming in and you're offering a solution that's not only beneficial to Rapid Cloud, as in you're getting a new customer and helping them to stay, inside of your platform, but you're also helping them to stay within the WordPress ecosystem. And I think there's something, really noble about that, as well as, it's in alignment with your business. So we're talking about you being aligned with the customer success. Now we're talking about you being aligned with WordPress's
mm.
success. How does that story go? Like, how do you actually go into a conversation there, and what are the topics of conversation that you have to have? What do you have to defend in terms of WordPress? And I know there's a lot of questions, but let me just ask one more thing on top of all that. In the old days when I was selling WordPress, it was very much like having conversations about open source technology as a whole. Who's updating it? Who's in charge of it? Who do you call when something goes wrong or is broken? I feel like I'm not having those
No.
conversations as much anymore. So I'm curious what your take is on all that.
The language around WordPress and There was a conversation by one of the XWP team at WordCamp in Portland last year, I think, around this exact problem. Um, at Enterprise, even when they go into a meeting, they have to do two pitches, where the SaaS guys are doing one. Their first pitch is around WordPress. Their first pitch is around the history of WordPress, its legacy, and all its upsides and positives and benefits. Um, the benefit of open source, the benefits of a cohesive but equally diverse platform of plugins and themes and systems, and most importantly, about the privacy aspects and the data ownership and the IP retention, um, and the control. When you head into a SaaS model, look, none of the SaaS guys are saying they're cheaper than us. They're quoting prices often higher, but they're
Sure.
arguing, and what they're not explaining in a lot of cases is the loss of control and the loss of data integrity or data ownership. WordPress is infinitely modifiable. WordPress is infinitely customizable. There is a reason why BuddyBoss can deploy what is effectively Facebook on a blogging platform, because the underlying WordPress architecture, the underlying structure of WordPress itself allows that and permits it. And even beyond that, BuddyBoss can release a theme, or Shooter LSMS, or Lifter, or Elementor, or LearnDash can release a product. And a guy down the road can go, that's a great product, but I've got an idea. Create something new and be a LearnDash plugin developer,
Oh yeah.
releasing a product into that space that solves another problem. That's
It's
not
it's a
possible.
physical it's a physical like example of this idea. I remember Jason Silva, he's like a futurist. He
Hmm.
talks about all this stuff, but he talks about this idea that like ideas can procreate
Yeah.
and that they can, you like I share an idea with you, you have a slightly different take on it, whatever. But WordPress is a physical manifestation of that because you can actually see how people are writing code. You can fork it, you can change it, you can adapt to it. And I think one of the things that you're touching on there too is that when you make the decision to move from WordPress to a closed source,
You lose all that.
SaaS-based system, you're creating a single point of failure. Whereas with WordPress, you're diversifying and you're creating ways in which you can pivot on many different
Hmm.
areas. It's like it's not just it's not just the hosting because you can take your entire platform and you can move it from one host to another, but you're also diversifying the code that's behind it, the technological teams that are behind it, all these things so that you're not relying on this one place. And then if God forbid something does happen with that SaaS product, I don't know what that even looks like getting back out of it again.
Well,
It's I would
the
imagine incredibly expensive.
the data's locked. I'll
Yeah,
give you an interesting example. Fluent Communities has been released into the WordPress space recently by Jewel and the team there. Uh, Good product. As I said, I'm related to BuddyWalls, but I'm WordPress, very still WordPress agnostic. Um, Jewel and his team have worked on an importer. If a person is on BuddyBoss and decides they don't like it, you could literally import your entire BuddyBoss community into their platform. Now, that's, you know, that's just a part of WordPress. I can tell you right
yep,
now that if you went to Circle or Mighty Networks, there's no migrator available to migrate between Circle and Mighty Networks. Um,
yeah,
um, but the nature of WordPress says that you can. We have two new e-commerce products coming into the space at the moment: North and Fluent Cart, and Shortcut obviously is already there as well. All of those actually have exchangeable data. Um, it's a massage, but you could at any given point in time massage your data and switch plugin.
sure.
Or um, we can change our themes. We can change our looks. In the SaaS platform world, they are not options for you. Or if there is an option, oh well, there is a developer module, that's an extra $100,000, and you need to onboard a team of 3 DevOps, 4 SysOps, and a systems engineer, or whatever the obligation requirements are. In the WordPress space, you can literally go on ChatGPT, whether we like it or not, and go, "Hey, ChatGPT, could you help me build a plugin that does this?"
Yeah. I would
Um,
imagine though you're having very similar conversations to the ones that we had in the first episode around the fact that you're owning your influence.
yeah.
You're making a decision to build a social platform on something like Buddy Boss because you want to have control over it. You're not going to be beholden to some algorithm that you have no control over. The same conversation kind of happened here. The SaaS company, they may be a very well built company. They might have, but who knows? Like if they're going to be around in a year or two or 3 or 5. And so now you've built your entire business on top of this platform that you're then creating this single point of failure again. And you're not even paying attention to the fact that like you chose not to build this on Facebook or Instagram or whatever because of those same exact reasons.
And they often have a sting in the tail. Shopify is a good example of that. As you get successful on Shopify, Shopify starts to look like an expensive business proposition from a total cost of ownership model when you're looking at unit metrics. Because what seems to start happening is it gets more expensive, not less expensive. Um,
Right.
and that, oh yeah, they're taking X percent. Doesn't feel bad when you're only selling a couple of products. But we just sold 1 million products, and we gave how much to Shopify? If we'd sold that 1 million products on WordPress, we would have
Yeah.
retained a bucket load of money.
Right.
So there are those conversations to be had, but they have to be tempered right now by hosting challenges and scalability challenges in the WordPress space. There are some structural problems in WordPress, and they're part of WordPress's own success. The database, the nature of the WP post, WP meta, post meta tables, allow WordPress to do what it does, but they're also its worst enemy when you start to look at scalability and especially the databases. We don't handle 100,000 users very well in our platform because our platform's not optimized to handle those sort of things. We've got little drop downs that are trying to load 100,000 users into a select the user you want drop down. It's like, yeah, we need to rethink some of that stuff. We've got databases, the meta value columns that aren't indexed in any way, shape, or form, but advanced custom fields users who are going, hey, I've added a new custom field, which defines the hair color of every one of my users, and now I want to filter on it. And
Right.
I've only got 3 redheads in the group and 100,000 users, and I'm now doing 100,000 record table walks every time someone says, and who's the redhead? Because we don't have indexing built into WordPress on those columns. And that's a legacy thing. Technically, and these are the sort of things we do with our customers, we actually optimize those indexes and can add indexing to value columns because of subfield indexes and things like that. But it's not in WordPress itself.
How do we take the learnings and the things that you're working on that companies like yourselves
Mm.
are doing to scale WordPress, and how do we give that back to the WordPress like core team to improve?
I'm, for me, I'm actively involved in Make WordPress. I'm a
That's
member of
great.
the hosting team. I championed the creation of the hosting performance communication channel between the hosting and performance teams. We're working actively in that hosting group. So how do we do that? We get involved. There are
I
opportunities
love
for
that.
everyone in this space, and forget Five for the Future and obligations to contribute. There are many more benefits to contributing than thoughts of obligation because
Than purely just having your name listed in that
no,
group for
we
sure.
can
Yeah.
we can be there active. I chaired the Five for the Future roundtable at WordCamp in Europe because it needed to be done, and it required
Yeah.
a contribution. We're actively involved in the hosting community channels. We're part of the team championing the new test runner project that has been running for a long time, but we're repositioning it. We're also looking at extending that test runner project to actual directory inside WordPress that can show metrics about hosts in a very, orthodox way, that helps people have some sort of an understanding of what hosts are offering in these spaces, the ones that are getting involved in the community. So
Yeah.
they're the options, to actually
I
get
think that's
involved
really
in the
great
community.
because you're identifying some critical aspects that need to be maybe improved or impaired within WordPress, and it's very much like, when we think about ourselves as members of the WordPress community, it's very much like you have a sibling or a younger brother or sister. You can pick on them, you can tell them what needs to get improved, but it's like when someone outside, like some kid down the street starts picking on your brother, yeah, you stand in and defend them, and it's very much the same way, right? Like you're coming from this from a perspective of someone who's actually dedicating the time to improve WordPress and to give back, and not doing it purely just because you want to have a contribution listed somewhere, but because you actually identify with the fact that like you and your contributions can make WordPress better, helps you to have better customer experiences, helps you to make more money, helps you. It is a holistic view, and I think that's
100%.
something that every hosting company can benefit from looking into that and thinking about how they can
100%.
give back. Yeah, yeah, that's great. Well, I think that's an excellent place to take a pause here. Is another awesome episode. It's so funny how fast 30 minutes goes by, Wes, but it was a real pleasure talking to you. I would love to have you back on the show at some point. Maybe we can talk about some more things. We didn't get to talk about like ways in which people at home can actually start to, identify where and what's going wrong with their site. So I think it would be really great to bring you back on and say maybe we can have a conversation and talk specifically maybe about like some specific sites that are struggling and how to like identify what it is that they need as an improvement or something like that.
Exactly.
So
I'm at WordCamp Brisbane this weekend doing a 45-minute presentation on that exact topic. We're discussing,
oh,
you
that's
know,
fantastic.
and
All
we're,
right.
we're literally discussing not the hosting perspective, but how customers with websites can spend the time and identify areas that they themselves can address, or at least talk to their hosts about things like object caching and OP caching and all those sort of things, that for many customers aren't even on their radar. So happy to talk about that sort of stuff.
That'd be great. Yeah, so I'll look for your presentation. I think almost all WordCamp talks now end up on WordPress.tv. So yeah, so we can watch for that at home. And in the meantime, if anybody wants to get in touch with you or reach out, where's the best place to do that?
Wes Rapid at Makers, mate, or LinkedIn. Wes Tatters at LinkedIn, but Wes Rapid at you know make.wordpress.org is where people reach
That's
out to
great.
me on a regular basis.
Awesome.
And if you're a
All right. Well,
host,
thanks
join us
for
in the hosting team.
yeah, that's some great advice there. If you are a hosting company and you're listening to this show, take some time to go onto the Make WordPress Slack and join the conversation.
100%.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Wes.
My pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Impressive Hosting, where we uncover the core tenets of great WordPress hosting. Do you have a follow-up question for today's guest, thought or comment on anything we talked about, a future guest suggestion, a hosting horror story? What do you think makes great WordPress hosting? All your comments shape this show. Drop them on impressive.host. We also appreciate you following us on social media and subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform. Finally, do check out our list of open source projects that need support at impressive.host. Whether it's code, community, or cache, you can make a difference. See you next time.